have won it in overtime.
Philadelphia Eagles are 3-8 in their last 11 games.
After a magical 2022 season, in which they won 14 regular season games on their way to a Super Bowl appearance, the Philadelphia Eagles extended their 24-year-old MVP runner-up quarterback, Jalen Hurts, to a monster $51 million per year contract, with the feeling that it was only the beginning of their success. And with the numbers that Hurts and the Eagles put up that year, it would be tough to question paying the man after they were second in points per game, third in passing yards per attempt, fourth in passer rating, seventh in expected points added, or EPA as you may have heard it, and an impressive 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio that was the best in the league that year. The Eagles were cooking with gas. Enter 2023, where the Eagles started hot again at 10-1, only to see their honeymoon stage come to a screeching halt in one of the more memorable late season collapses in recent memory, finishing a devastating 1-6, capped off by a blowout by the Tampa Bay Bucks in the first round of the playoffs. And now in 2024, the Eagles are off to a bit of a rocky start, scrapping out a 2-2 record in which their star quarterback is really struggling. And over their last 13 games, almost a full season now, dating back to really when the losing all began last season, the Eagles' offensive production has absolutely plummeted. In this time, not only do they have a measly 3-8 record, but they've gone from second in points per game down to 22nd, from 7th in passing EPA to 21st, and for Jalen Hurts himself, from 4th in passer rating down to 20th, 3rd in passing yards per attempt down to 20th, and from the best touchdown to interception ratio in the league at 4-to-1, now resting at 26th in the league out of 33 eligible quarterbacks with a very plain 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. The hard truth right now is that whether you want to use the eye test or the stats, the Eagles and Jalen Hurts are struggling offensively in a way that Philadelphia certainly didn't think was in the cards when they felt they had just extended one of the best young quarterbacks in the league to a monster contract. So in today's video, I want to take a look at what is going on here, specifically with Jalen Hurts. What does this all mean for him as a player? Where is there room for improvement moving forward? And ultimately, just how much trouble are the Eagles in? So I went through every snap of Jalen's season so far this year on the All-22, and the first thing I want to discuss here today is his truly terrible pocket presence and how his inability to feel the rush, to know how and when to use his feet, to buy time, to find open passing windows, holds himself and the Eagles offense back. And to be transparent, this has been an issue that I've brought up with Hurts since day one of him starting in the league. But after reviewing the film this year, I can unfortunately say that his pocket presence and natural feel for the rush, or lack thereof, is frankly some of the worst among any starting quarterback in the league. And the tough reality with this is, A, this is primarily a trait dependent on instincts and spatial awareness that you rarely see improve in quarterbacks, and B, with such poor pocket presence, it really is extremely difficult to be a great quarterback, and effectively impossible, in my opinion, to become an elite one. And I say this because with such inconsistent ability to feel out the pass rush and utilize that space inside the pocket, Jalen Hurts will far too often leave meat on the bones of passing plays that a quarterback with better pocket presence would be able to access. And this leaving of the meat on the bones of passing plays can happen in a variety of different ways. And the thing you'll hear most when it comes to this is quarterbacks bailing out of perfectly clean pockets, or dropping their head to look at the rush instead of surveying the field and taking advantage of good pass protection when it's there. And this is definitely something Jalen Hurts can be guilty of a few times a game. Let's take a look at the first example here. I always like to run the plays first so you see what happens before I break plays down. But obviously this is not a pretty play. from Jalen Hurts. We'll skip Jair Alexander dancing around for 20 minutes before this play is over, but let's go back to what we saw there. This is the definition of bailing out of a clean pocket with meat on the bones of the play. This is absolutely a clean pocket in the NFL. There is all of this room here to step up. Clearly, all Hurts needs to do within this pro-style offense is take a hitch forward and hit this corner route. Progress to read number 2 and calmly execute the play. Instead, well, we saw what happens here. He gets out and exhibits some horrible decision-making out of structure after wasting what was really a perfectly good play drawn up by Kellen Moore and the coaching staff. And our next example, again against the Packers, a damn near identical example, although on this play, as I'll show in a second, he didn't even have to climb to his second read. It was right in his field of vision on his first read. You can see he hits the top of his drop. This is the read progression here. You can see quite clearly his head at the top of his drop is heading towards the 3 wide receiver side. All Jalen has to do, step up in the pocket, wait for this some sort of stick and nod concept to come open into the seam against cover 3, let it rip. But instead, he starts to lower his head, looks at the rush, doesn't see this throwing window coming open, gets out of the pocket, ran down, throws the ball out of bounds, ran up with a 2nd and long. But beyond this, you often hear quarterbacks praised for their ability to sense pressure. But what you don't hear as often and can be just as deadly when it comes to pocket presence is to know when you aren't pressured. And with Hurts, even at times when he elects to hang in the pocket for an extended period of time, he often leaves meat on the bones of passing plays with his inability to know when he isn't pressured, and that he has time and space to look for better or more explosive plays instead of throwing the ball out of bounds or short of the sticks on big downs. A perfect example of this here on this play against the Saints. He's got a perfectly clean pocket. It's a perfectly good 1st and 10, but, has a clock in the back of his head. Feels like he's about to get sacked, and in a bit of a way, just kind of panic throws this ball out of bounds, kind of wasting what could have been a good play here. If he continues to survey the field, resets, he might see right here, this receiver was starting to break inside. Who knows what happens here if Hurts doesn't throw the ball out of bounds, to which this receiver stops running immediately. Very similar situation here. Week 1 against the Packers. We got a 2nd and long down in the red zone. Perfectly clean pocket. And instead of, entering scramble drill, trying to make something happen, get a higher percentage look, perfectly clean pocket, he throws this ball into the check down, probably knowing damn well this is only going to get a yard or 2. That just doesn't do much for this team on not just 2nd and 10. This is 2nd and 20, right? And that's all good and well, but if we're going to be paying Jalen Hurts $55 million, we compare and contrast similar plays like this to what Patrick Mahomes does. You see him looking down the field on a 2nd down, looking for those big chunk plays. He's not going to settle here. He has check down options, but he's got plenty of time to sit in the pocket, wait for someone to react to get open, and he finds them for a huge play. Another example here, when I talk about the quarterback being able to manage that space, to feel the rush, knowing when and how to use his feet to navigate pressure and find time for higher percentage, bigger play opportunities down the field. This is the type of play right here that you just very seldom see these types of plays from Jalen Hurts. And I know we're looking at Patrick Mahomes here, but Mahomes isn't the only guy that makes plays like this, that shows high-end pocket presence to make these types of plays. Can look at that and then come right back to Jalen Hurts. This is a 3rd and 5 in a tight game against the Saints, a 3-man rush. He just throws this 3 yards short of the sticks, nothing really there. Instead of resetting in the pocket, looking downfield, seeing what was going to be an open wide receiver right here, didn't take the time to find it, settling for the underneath throw. And this is fine, but again, the context changes once that big contract kicks in, and you're looking for Jalen Hurts to give you a little bit more than what ends up being a very Daniel Jonesy play right here from Jalen. I'm sure Eagles fans won't like that one, but it's true. And these are just the plays where Hurts isn't doing what great quarterbacks do to find those different making plays beyond what is available within the structure of the offense. But unfortunately, this lack of pocket presence comes full circle on Jalen Hurts, in that he's far too often just straight up oblivious to the rush when pressure does get through, and to what sort of movement he needs to take in and out of the pocket to mitigate that pressure. Hurts has lost a pair of fumbles this year for this exact reason. Again, a three-man rush here. He does a good job to elude the first sack, but just so oblivious to the not even blindside pressure, right? This is his right tackle getting beat right on the side of his eye here. He just doesn't have that feel and awareness to know when he's going to get hit. He's too loose with the ball, and this is a huge turnover in this game. Nice tackle, though. Again, against the Bucs, the blitzing linebacker comes through, a good block by his running back, but to just reset in this situation when Levante David is right breathing down your neck, this is the definition of poor pocket presence and an inability to feel the rush and to know what to do here. That's just a bad turnover-worthy play and a fumble. So to me, this lack of pocket presence is a clear deterrent in Jalen Hurts' game. And in this trait and this trait alone, he's much closer to the pocket presence of, say, a Daniel Jones, as we mentioned, than he is anywhere close to the game's elite quarterbacks, who I would argue all have great pocket presence. And that dates back, by the way, to the Brady, Manning, Drew Breeses of the world too. To me, this feel for the pass rush, that ability to manage that natural randomness that exists on every single play as the pocket breaks down, is a consistent trait that all of the game's elite quarterbacks do have, and is something that they can tap into to consistently access anything on any given play that might exist out there beyond the confines of the structure of the offense, the system of the offense, if you will. And Jalen Hurts simply struggles to enter that world consistently. And it's not that he never does these things, it's just he doesn't do them with the consistency of the game's great quarterbacks. And for me, this is just an underlying problem with Jalen Hurts' game that is frankly likely to always hold him back to some degree if you're going to compare him to the many QBs paid at his level, right? But I do have more than just pocket presence to discuss here today. But before we move forward, I'd like to thank the sponsors for today's video, SeatGeek. If you're a sports fan, music lover, or maybe you're an Eagles fan and you want to go see Jalen Hurts turn his season around in person, SeatGeek is the #1 ticketing app out there to help you secure the best seats at the best price. SeatGeek is always the first place I go to when I'm looking to secure my tickets because their user interface cleanly color codes everything based on value. Look for the green dots and you'll make sure that you are getting the most bang for your buck. They're also really good about having images available for you to show you what the view is going to look like from the seats that you're looking at. Also, speaking from experience of using other ticketing apps, SeatGeek is also the best ticketing app in terms of getting your tickets quickly, conveniently, and right there on your SeatGeek app without having to navigate through email chains and logins from other platforms just to scan your tickets at the gate. But hold on, there's even more. I've been happily representing SeatGeek for over 5 years now, so many of you have probably used my code to buy seats before, but I have some great news. SeatGeek has hooked us up with a new code, so fans of the channel can take advantage of the discount again. So now the next time you use code TFG10 at checkout, whether you're an existing customer or a new one, you will get 10% off your next ticket purchase and support my channel in the process. This is a no-brainer. So the next time you're going to an event, remember code TFG10 when you check out on SeatGeek, and I hope you have a great time. So when the Eagles gave Jalen Hurts this massive contract, I believe they paid him out of two key principles. Number one, that Jalen Hurts brings something to the table with his legs in both the designed run game and as a scrambler that few quarterbacks can. And that even if he has flaws as a passer, that this running ability will raise his floor to a level that they're comfortable paying. And number two, that the remarkable growth that Jalen Hurts showed as a passer in the first few years of his career would lead to continued growth as a pro reads quarterback as they evolve into more of a pro style offense as opposed to the more watered down spread offense that they ran in 2022. Unfortunately, neither of these two key things came true. And since we're talking about whether or not the Eagles have a problem with Jalen Hurts on their hands, I want to revisit that first key principle of why they signed him. Because Jalen Hurts' clear physical regression coming at just 25 and 26 years old is perhaps the biggest problem at hand for the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, one of the underlying principles of paying Jalen all this money was that he can elevate the run game with the threat of his legs, as well as compensate for any deficiencies he might have as a passer through his explosive scrambling ability. Well, the eye test and the stats just don't lie on this. And this is an observation that many others have made as well watching Jalen Hurts play as of late. He just isn't exploding out of the pocket or showing the speed to win that angle on a pursuing defender that he once did. And not only can you just feel it watching him, but ever since a somewhat suspicious Week 7 knee injury last season, his 7.5 yards per carry, in which 43% of his runs went for a first down, has dropped down to 6.7 yards per carry, and just 32% of his carries are going for a first down. And it's not that he can't run at all. He's still a well above average athlete with vision and power and contact balance as a runner, but he simply isn't killing teams with his legs like he did in 2022 when he was an MVP candidate. And this is hurting the Eagles' run game too. Granted, this season adding a guy named Saquon Barkley has made up for some of it, but they just aren't quite the world beaters that they were in 2022 when they were the number one rushing offense in the league with a bullet. But not only that, him not being as deadly as a scrambler has also led to him throwing a little bit more in these scramble situations, where he's gone from 5 throws outside of the pocket per game to now 6.5 per game in this time since that injury. And it just feels like his relative lack of arm talent, which he doesn't have this crazy strong arm, and a relative lack of passing creativity are just getting exposed a little bit more than maybe before. Now, it isn't that Jalen can't make plays on the run. This is a very solid part of his game, well showcased here in this touchdown throw against the Saints, where he's rolling out and finds a nice throwing window for the score. But when you take into account what we've already said about his lack of pocket presence and the fact, as we'll discuss in a moment, he just isn't playing well in structure from the pocket, and then compare his ability to make spectacular plays out of structure on the run to many of the game's greats today. And let's face it, Jalen Hurts also isn't within the top 10 to 12 best quarterbacks in the league in that phase either. Take this first drop back in the Bucs game, for example. He actually does a good job with nothing there to get out of the pocket and roll out, but he doesn't win the angle from the pursuing defenders to scramble here. So he ends up throwing the ball. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. You're seeing the relative lack of arm talent compared to the game's greats showing up as a deficiency. Is this a challenging throw? Yes. Do you expect all of the quarterbacks in the NFL to be able to make this throw? No. But if this is a guy that is going to make his money making spectacular plays out of structure, you would prefer that he's able to make this throw. If he's able to have the arm talent here to lead this throw to Saquon Barkley back into the field, into anywhere in this area, you might have an opening drive touchdown that changes the entire course of this game that quickly got out of hand because the Eagles ended up punting on this drive. And by the way, this is not an impossible throw. In fact, Josh Allen, yes, one of the greatest throwers on the run in the history of the league, but still made this exact same play this week. Almost identical distance and identical read, but you can see whereas Jalen Hurts puts this ball over here, Josh Allen puts the ball over here, and we all saw the results on Sunday night, but let's see it again because, God, that's beautiful. But it isn't just that arm talent that holds him back again a little bit, but many of the game's unbelievable throwers on the run, such as Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, don't have great arms, maybe even weaker than Jalen Hurts, but they show off their ability to make incredible plays on the run at an even higher level than Jalen Hurts can due to their wild instincts, the pocket presence as we talked about, and their ability to see throwing windows down the field that very few can. And I don't believe Hurts is on this level either. I think this play against the Falcons is a very fair example of this. Again, he's rolling out, trying to find something out of structure, and there you had it right there. A very subtle moment, but one we see from a lot of these great play extenders all the time. A little pump fake, and then a second, maybe flip of the ball, a jump pass, something to find a way to get this ball with about a yard of space to get this ball to Saquon Barkley in that moment. And I think the other angle shows that this was a more reasonable play for Jalen Hurts to have made in this moment than the sideline angle. You can see right there. Get it to him. These guys clearly have committed to you. Get that ball out to Saquon. In fact, Saquon a little bit frustrated that the ball doesn't come his way there. So to me, as his legs have become a little bit less deadly, the Eagles just aren't quite getting the athlete and spectacular playmaker in the passing game that they hoped they were signing. And that, of course, is a problem. You don't expect physical regression at 25, 26 years old. But it is also a problem that has been compounded by the fact that Hurts has yet to deliver on the second key thing the Eagles were counting on when they paid him. You remember what that was? That's right. They were hoping for Hurts to continue to show his impressive year-to-year growth as they evolved into more of a pro-style offense. So a huge selling point on Jalen Hurts, and a big part of why they paid him, was that he showed remarkable, historic even, ability to get better at his weaknesses every single year and become a better passer. Hell, I even made a video about this in 2022, breaking down the progress he made in reducing his time to throw, his turnover-worthy plays, and just overall showing a notable growth in his processing ability. However, since getting away from Shane Steichen's offense and leaning into more of a pro-style offense, first last year, kind of trying to split the difference in schemes there, going with Brian Johnson's offense, and now leaning all the way into the pro-style thing under Kellen Moore's offense this year, where the Eagles are trying to make Jalen Hurts into something like their own version of Dak Prescott, who they're very familiar with within this division, and who Kellen Moore coached in Dallas. But essentially, since they've started putting more on Jalen Hurts' plate, he's truly only regressed in the very areas that were so key to his progress early in his career. In 2022, under Shane Steichen, Hurts got his time to throw down to a career low of 2.86 seconds in time to throw, just above the league average of about 2.7 seconds, and that was good to rank him a healthy 14th in the NFL in 2022. But last season, Hurts' time to throw skyrocketed back over 3 seconds at 3.11, ranking 4th highest in the league. Not really where you want to be. And so far in 2024, he's even higher at 3.15, ranking 2nd highest in the league and almost exactly back to where he was in his very first season as a starter. And unfortunately, it's not just that time to throw metric that's going in the wrong direction. Hurts has also regressed significantly in terms of putting the ball in harm's way. In his first few years, his turnover-worthy play rate went down every year, leading up to a career-best 1.8% in 2022, good for 2nd in the league that year. And it went back up a bit last year at 2.3%, but still 8th in the league. But so far in 2024, in what has been a disastrous start in Kellen Moore's offense, Hurts leads the league in turnover-worthy plays per PFF with 11. And he has the 2nd highest turnover-worthy play rate behind just Anthony Richardson. Hurts being at 6.7%. That number is nearly 4 times what he had in 2022. And perhaps the most crazy stat you'll hear today, in just 4 games this season, he's already just 5 turnover-worthy plays short of the total amount he had in 19 games in that 2022 season. And some of these turnovers are just hideous looks, man. We already looked at some of the fumbles stemming from his poor pocket presence and the interception in the end zone against the Eagles. But some of these reads are just egregiously bad decisions with the football, where there is nothing there, forcing balls into a place that you would not hope a $51 million per year quarterback would be making. And on top of those big mistakes and not being able to make quick decisions with the football within Kellen Moore's offense, as we described, another area where Hurts is really struggling is in pushing the ball downfield on a lot of the passing concepts that are giving him the option to do so. And some of this might be stemming from that relative lack of arm strength that we talked about, limiting the types of throws he can make or feels like he can make. Perfect example here is against the Saints, where he gets a clear cover 2 look pre and post snap and just refuses to test that honey hole shot up the sideline. But there's other examples we can look at on film too, where he's just not accessing those deeper route options in his progressions. Perfect example here against the Saints, kind of zeroing in on that comebacker to the outside, but right on his first read, right in this field of vision. He's not even reading this thing out. The safety came down, and this is NFL WAO, as they call this, wide ass open. Throw this into this area, get a chunk play. Instead, he's zeroed in on the comebacker that's somewhat tightly covered. It's obviously a great route by Smith here and a good timing throw from Hurts as he kind of walks himself into pressure. But man, I would be willing to bet that Dak Prescott in this offense is going to take a little hitch here, create a little bit more space for this throw. Boom. 15, 20-yard play, breaks a tackle. You might have a touchdown. And this is another missed opportunity here against the Bucs. You know, people say Kellen Moore's not getting anybody open, but this is a missed opportunity from Jalen Hurts. This is the right coverage beater drawn up here. They have cover 2, which the Bucs love to run a lot of. Your 2 high safeties. You got the middle linebacker running with this clear out route. You've got a flat defender here. Jalen Hurts should be reading out this corner route to hit this hole shot. It's a great opportunity for a big pass in this game. He's got a relatively clean pocket there. I want to see him get to this concept here instead of taking the ball short of the yard to gain there. And this, by the way, is an area where the stats back up the tape yet again. This season, Jalen Hurts ranks 23rd out of 33 eligible quarterbacks in the percentage of his throws that have traveled at least 15 plus yards, and even lower, ranking 27th out of 33 in percent of his throws going 20 plus yards. Contrast that with Dak Prescott, who has obvious parallels here with what they're asking Jalen Hurts to do in this offense, and Dak is 10th out of 33 eligible quarterbacks in percent of his throws going 15 plus yards. Part of playing in a pro-style offense is not just making faster, smarter decisions, but it's understanding your passing concepts, where they're good against certain coverages, and pushing the ball downfield within structure when you can. And Jalen Hurts right now is just simply not doing that. And this is all before I even mention how Jalen Hurts and the Eagles continue to struggle to find answers for the blitz, as Jalen's really been all over the place in terms of handling protections and getting the ball to the right place against the blitz this season. It's not all bad. He's getting the ball out against the blitz, but still very much learning how to set the protections because Kelsey did that for them at center for all this time. So you're seeing slides in the wrong direction. You're seeing teams confuse Jalen and force some really ugly dropbacks against the blitz. So needless to say, he just simply isn't processing defenses at a high level in really any way you want to look at it right now. And the Eagles have to be at least a little bit disappointed in the lack of development in this part of his game since the time they paid him. Now, it certainly is not too late for that type of growth that we're looking for to come. And I really don't want this video to turn into a complete dismantling of Jalen Hurts. He's obviously going through an extended period of struggles right now. And while many of those struggles are on him and stem from weaknesses in his game that I feel he's always had and will be tough to shake, I would be just a hater if I didn't at least acknowledge that he is only in his fourth game in Kellen Moore's offense. He's been without A.J. Brown most of the season, and he's still just 26 years old with a super impressive track record of work ethic and development. There is absolutely a world where he can get up to speed and find a version of himself in this new stage of his career where he's less mobile and playing in a pro-style offense where he can yet again play at a high level. And if that can happen, I still don't think his upside is insane for all of the reasons we've broken down in this video. But if he can settle back in as something like the 13th or 14th best quarterback in the league, the Eagles can absolutely stomach this contract and at least compete for a Super Bowl if they can continue to put the right pieces around him. But that said, I do think the Eagles were hoping that the growth we're searching for would have happened a little bit more by now. And if it doesn't happen very soon, we can look at this massive contract and see quite easily how this could become a very big problem for Philadelphia. Now, I was originally going to include a full Jalen Hurts contract breakdown in this video to look at what this all means for the future of the Eagles. But as I started to really research this beast of a contract, it became very clear to me that that needs to become a part 2 of this video. So if you're interested in the nitty-gritty of that monster contract and a little bit of how the NFL salary cap works, I'll have it pinned here and at the end screen of this video as soon as I have that video ready. But to give you the sort of Spark Notes version on that, Jalen Hurts is only making $13 million against the cap this season, but that number is going to start to get more and more expensive each year, which will of course make it harder and harder for the Eagles to surround him with elite teams. Elite teams that, frankly, a quarterback of his caliber likely needs to win a Super Bowl. But beyond that, as I'll discuss in that part 2 video we're going to make, this contract could be a potential ticking time bomb for the Eagles, especially in the year when he turns 30, if his play does not improve. Now, we're years removed from having to panic about that, but believe me, it is something very much on Howie Roseman and the Eagles' radar right now as Hurts continues to struggle. At the end of the day, I want nothing more than for this video to age like milk and for Jalen Hurts to go out and dunk on me and the rest of the league. I think he's one of the good guys in the NFL, and I'm genuinely pulling for his success. But if I'm calling it like I see it, I see a very flawed quarterback who's currently playing like a bottom third starter in the league, who has a very challenging path ahead of him to get back to playing at a solid level. But even then, I do have my doubts that he has the upside to pay those dividends back to the Eagles on this massive payday. And that in and of itself is a potential problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. But with that, this concludes my study of Jalen Hurts and his recent struggles. If you enjoyed this video and other film essay style content from me, I really hope you take a second to drop a like down below so that this video performs well and that I know to make more videos like this. And of course, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos from me. And for more NFL analysis from me, check out my podcast, The Fully Inflated Football Show, here on YouTube or wherever you get your audio feeds. Lastly, leave your comments down below. Do you agree that the Eagles might have a little bit of a Jalen Hurts problem, or am I overreacting? I want to hear from all of you guys what you think in the comments down below. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.